People experiencing homelessness has become a community crisis, reaching epidemic proportions. Our culture is no longer shocked to see the sheer number of people sleeping in doorways, parks, and vehicles. Tarps, tents, and cardboard boxes dot various landscapes, revealing the vulnerable and socially severed. Community shelters are packed to capacity, and local governments face a multitude of fiscal conflicts. Anchorless people wander about, sinking into despair, losing connection with community, and finally losing hope. These are not just homeless people. These are mothers, brothers, uncles, and nieces, and ultimately, they are our neighbors. As a cultural group, homeless people in the United States represent a diverse population. While predominantly male, the demographics have unfortunately been expanding to include young mothers with small children, school-age youth, and the elderly at an alarming rate. Communities are struggling to identify the resources necessary to meet the demand for a range of services and supports needed in addressing the complexity of their homeless population. It is reported that each night over 60,000 people are seeking shelter in New York City alone. While efforts have been made to identify solutions, controversy surrounds both short-term emergency responses as well as long-term strategic planning goals. The scope of contributing factors for the homeless population is extremely broad and multifaceted. The emphasis of this presentation ranges from a specific demographic of women in crisis experiencing homelessness to whole communities in crisis experiencing homelessness. Connecting the crisis of a person to the crisis of a community may provide the needed insight into creating more successful models of intervention and ultimately prevention. Her challenges. This woman is likely to be in her 20s and may have small children under the age of 5. She is challenged in multiple areas of her life. Most are single, drug-dependent, unemployed, and are receiving public assistance. Most acute, however, is her poverty of relationships. She is usually without healthy and meaningful relationships or kinship associations in the community. Research is showing that while mental health and other psychological issues are primary challenges, it has also revealed how supportive relationships can provide a significant role in assisting women cope with this stressful environment. And without effective interventions, vulnerable populations will stay vulnerable. Community center and shelter-based programs are by far the most relied upon intervention sources of support for the homeless experience. The range of supports are immediate to long-range interventions such as residential, healthcare services, case management, adult and clinical services to address severe and chronic trauma. Shelter-based residential recovery programs create a sense of community and belonging that opens the door to developing stronger communication and relationship skills. Often these programs will be the woman's first experience with a safe, supportive living environment and a respite from the exhaustion and numbness that accompanies the homeless lifestyle. The National Healthcare for the Homeless Council has identified 9 jurisdictions in the United States that have made formal emergency declarations. 4 of the 9 are in California, 2 in Washington State, 2 in Oregon, and Hawaii, which has declared a statewide emergency. Some of the approaches or strategies that they have developed or are working toward are strategic planning for affordable housing, amending zoning codes to locate shelters in appropriate areas, and the waiving of bid requirements for homeless service contracts. By focusing on homeless children and youth, some temporary shelters have been set up using school district property. Day storage is a place to hold personal items for those without housing, so they don't have to haul them around during the day. Funding reallocation for mental health is where state funds take funding from one area of their budget and increase the mental health services budget to address the needs of their homeless population. A Dawn to Dusk program in Oregon is an ordinance that allows sleeping in designated areas, and this decreases the element of criminality that's attached oftentimes to homelessness. Culturally appropriate, a mobile medical van increases accessibility of mental health services in alternative community settings by going to the clients instead of assuming that clients will come to the office. In conclusion, community support services and shelters, government programs, and faith-based shelters all provide helpful resources in an attempt to reduce the crisis of homelessness, but still struggle to identify the most effective approach to intervention in our communities. Communities are made of people that are connected in complex and meaningful ways. The type of connection determines the meaning and level of complexity. Women with young children experiencing homelessness are people in my community, and there are people in your community. While large-scale social solutions may alleviate some of the symptoms of hopelessness, addressing this crisis with enough energy, strength, and ability to neutralize its destructive effects will require each of us to experience our own vulnerabilities. Homelessness, may be best conquered by exchanging our comfort zones for kinship zones, where community-based circles of care become the foundation of our communities.